for Hollywood. I've always depended on the kindness of strangers. Oh, hello there. I am Stan the Movie Man, and this is not exactly a review, but I'm just telling you about the documentary Apollo 11. It features archival footage from NASA and some very simple animations, and it follows the timeline pretty much in order from the moment the Apollo 11 Saturn V rocket was rolled out to the launch pad 39A to the time the astronauts got out of quarantine because they weren't 100% sure that the surface of the moon didn't contain some sort of nasty microbe. They kept them in isolation for 18 days. It is all done with archival footage. While there is some interview, it's really not interview so much as it is just like news coverage and things of that nature. There's not a voiceover guy or woman who is recounting the facts. They let the footage tell the story, and it is brilliant. If you haven't seen it yet, I believe it got released some months back in theaters, but it was in theaters today, and as I'm recording this, it is July 20th, the 50th anniversary of the Apollo 11 astronauts landing on the moon. Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, while Michael Collins remained in orbit around the moon. It is spectacular, and if you can see it in a theater, that's the best way to see it. It is a testament to the ingenuity, the technological breakthroughs, and the bravery of all the people associated, not just the 3 astronauts on board the ship, but also the people who were in mission control, who were at the launch center, who built and fabricated the vessels themselves, the people who sewed the spacesuits by hand at a time when the computers on board the ship were less powerful than my iWatch, my Apple Watch, probably less powerful than most radios, smart TVs, or they could do the most simple calculations. And as you see, one of the computer on board the lunar module was overwhelmed with information. Now, as a companion to this, I would suggest you listen to the podcast 13 Minutes to the Moon. It's from the BBC. It talks to the people who were involved, as well as using archival audio clips to talk about it, and they go in depth in a way this documentary couldn't into the things leading up to the landing and the landing itself, and it is as exciting as this documentary, just over 13 or 12 or 13 episodes. It is, but this documentary, Apollo 11, is spectacular. For someone like me who was laying on the living room floor in my parents' house watching our black and white TV as they were stepping off the limb onto the lunar surface, I felt much of the same excitement as I did as a 7-year-old watching that. And if you were somebody who's interested in the space program, or even history, because there's a little brief section where they talk about the other things going on at the time as the as the ship is headed toward the moon. It's a fascinating look back half a century to a time when, much like now, we were severely divided between the Vietnam War and the protests against it, and just the sort of general collapse of a certain level of civility in public discourse. Certainly not the way it is now. But it is a spectacular documentation of a time that I'm afraid we'll never see again, when the country was combined and unified behind a mission. We had a reason to go to the moon. Now, that reason was to beat the Russians, but it still unified us in our desire to get to the moon. We talk about going to Mars. I doubt it'll happen, certainly not by 2033 or whatever that arbitrary date is they're looking at. There's a lot of things to work out before you can go to Mars, and I'm not sure we're either prepared to invest the time, the money, or the research and the development that will be required to get us to Mars. But beside the point, Apollo 11, the documentary, is spectacular. I loved it. I would watch it every day, all day, on a loop if I could. I am the kind of guy who would watch Apollo 11 or Apollo rocket launches on YouTube and shuttle launches on YouTube, and watch from the various cameras that are placed on shuttle launches specifically as the solid rocket boosters split away, and all of that. And I love this stuff, and I loved Apollo 11. It gets 55 million stars, or 5 in this case. Go to StanTheMovieMan.com to read my glowing review of Apollo 11. Follow me on Twitter @MovieManStan, and send emails to me, StanTheMovieMan123 @gmail.com. Till next time. Later.